This video is for section 4.4. Our objectives in this video are to graph a linear inequality in two variables and to graph a system of linear inequalities. So we're going to start with graphing a single linear inequality. This is similar to the process for just graphing lines, but we're going to add a couple of extra steps. So what we're going to do first is replace the inequality symbol, which is a less than or greater than symbol, with an equal sign. And graph the line using the same processes that we saw back in section 2.4. We use a solid line if the inequality is less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. In other words, the ones that have the line underneath. We use a dotted line or a dashed line if it's strictly less than or strictly greater than, because that means the line is not actually included because it's not equal to. So that's the first step, is drawing the line. Once you have the line, you need to determine one side of the line that should be shaded. And the way that you do that is by plugging in a test point. You can actually use any test point that you want, but the easiest test point to use is 0, 0, because it makes the math a little bit easier, and it's also very easy to locate on the graph. It's the point where the x-axis and the y-axis meet. So after you plug in the test point 0, 0, you look at the resulting statement, inequality, and if it is true, then you shade over the point 0, 0, because that means that it is included. So you shade the side that includes the point 0, 0. If the result is false, then you shade the side that does not include 0, 0. So you shade the other side. So those are the steps. We're going to start by looking at example 1. It says to graph 2x minus 3y greater than or equal to 6. So we're going to start by graphing the line, which is 2x minus 3y equals 6. And it's going to be a solid line because it's a greater than or equal to symbol. So the line is included. This is a cover-up method problem because I have x and y on the same side. So this is a good review of graphing lines. So cover up the y, 2x equals 6, solve, and I get x equals 3. Cover up the x, remember the negative sign needs to be attached to the 3 there, so we have negative 3y equals 6, and then I divide, and I get y equals negative 2. And then remember, these points go on the axes. So negative 2 on the y-axis, 3 on the x-axis. They don't make a single point, they're the intercepts. And I'm going to draw a solid line as straight as I can here through the points, like that. So that's the line. Now I need to determine which side of the line should be shaded. So I'm going to plug in 0, 0. When I plug this in for my test point, I plug into my original inequality, not the equation with the equal sign. So that's 2x minus 3y greater than or equal to 6. So I plug in 0 for x and 0 for y. And 0 times anything is 0, so that makes the math a little bit easier here. 0 minus 0 is 0. So we have 0 greater than or equal to 6. Now I need to think about, is that true or not? Is 0 greater than or equal to 6? No, it's not. It's less than 6. So that makes this false. 0 is not greater than 6. So that means we shade the side that does not include 0, 0. So my line is up here. 0, 0 is right here. So that means I'm not going to shade above the line, I'm going to shade below it. So I'm going to shade this side over here. So that's what that looks like. What you should do next is checkpoint problem number 1. Do this problem in your notes. The answers are in the notes that are posted, and then you can move on with the rest of the video. Next, we're going to look at example 3, which is horizontal and vertical lines. So the first one, this is 2 parts. Part A is to graph y less than or equal to -3. So again, I'm going to graph y equals -3 first. This is going to be a solid line because it's less than or equal to. And if you remember from section 2.4, the way that I graph horizontal and vertical lines is I think about, okay, I'm going to make a table, and I know that y is always -3 if y equals -3. So fill in -3 for y, pick any 2 numbers for x, and then plot the points. 1 -3 is over here, 2 -3 would be over here. I'm going to draw in a solid line. So it's going to look like that. Now, you can do test points for these as well. I could plug in 0 for y and see if it's true or false. But the other way to think about it is to just think about, okay, y is less than -3. So if I think about what my y coordinates here are, we have -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. Y coordinates that are less than -3 are going to be below. So a less than symbol means that you would shade below the line. If it were greater than, that would mean I would shade above the line because numbers there are going to be greater. So that's part A. We're going to look at part B. This one is x is greater than 2. So I'm going to start by graphing x equals 2 with a dotted line. So make my table. X equals 2 means that x is always 2. I can pick any 2 numbers for y, plot the points, and then draw in a dotted line. And then for the shading, x coordinates greater than 2, if I label my x-axis here, are going to be to the right. Numbers smaller than 2, are going to be to the left. So greater than 2 means that I shade on the right side. So next, I'm going to show you what this looks like in the homework. So again, we're going to click to enlarge graph. My problem here is x plus 4y greater than 8. We're going to use the line tool again. If you look at the lower right corner, you see where you can switch between solid line and dashed line. So I'm going to click there to switch to the dashed line. You can also draw the line first and then select to switch it to the dashed line. But I'm going to plot the points here. So x is going to be 8. Y is going to be 2. So plot those 2 points. And then I have my line. So click off the graph to deselect the line. Then for shading, what you're going to use is this little paint bucket. If you remember Microsoft Paint, if you ever used that when you were younger, it's the same idea. When you use the paint bucket, it's going to shade everything in that area. So I click on the shading bucket, and then I click on the side of the line that I want to shade. So I'm going to think about, okay, plug in 0, 0, 0 greater than 8, that's false. So I need to shade the side that does not include 0, 0, so I'm going to shade above the line. Click on the paint bucket. It'll put the paint bucket on the graph. It doesn't matter where you put it as long as you put it on the right side of the line where it's supposed to go, but anywhere is fine. So click on the paint bucket and then click Save, and then check Answer, and that's it. So what you should do next is checkpoint 3. There's again part A and part B for that. So do this problem in your notes, check your answer with the notes that are posted, and then you can move on to the homework.